McCarthy gives it to Corum, hits the edge. Corum down the sideline. Blake Corum does it again. 47 yards. The little big man.
All right, hi there. Welcome in to good afternoon, Michigan football. We are ready to kick things off on this Monday, the weekend after Michigan opened the Big Ten season against Maryland at home, and they won that game 34-27. I'm here to talk about it, looking back, how I felt about that game on Saturday. I'll take your feelings as well. If you're somebody that's watching this live right now, go over and tell me how you felt about the Wolverines' victory on Saturday, and we'll discuss it a little bit, and we will talk about what you were seeing. Now, as far as how I've decided to go through and talk about the game on Saturday, I will give you a list of things that I liked and things that I did not like. I will talk about J.J. McCarthy's day, the Michigan quarterback making his first ever conference start. And we'll just get to it being a Michigan Monday out of the gate with the Wolverines prevailing 34-27. It was 17-13 at the half. The story of this game was Blake Corum, the Big Ten Player of the Week, 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, you say that's the story of the game. There's, another 5 to 10 stories to talk about. But Corum, number 2, trumps everything. If Michigan didn't have Blake Corum on Saturday, they'd have been in big trouble. When Michigan needed to get out of trouble, give themselves some breathing room, give themselves some momentum, you think about both of those touchdowns. We played the first one at the beginning there from Gus Johnson from Fox, calling him the little big man on his house call. That came late in the first half with under a minute to play. Michigan was down, and Corum broke off that 33-yard touchdown run. That was, I'll say it was huge. I'll say it a lot. Well, that was a huge play. That was a big play for Michigan to take the lead going into half. Feel a lot different about Michigan if they have to settle for a field goal there, and if they're down at the half, you don't have the same feeling that you do after what you saw Corum did in the second half when Michigan needed a big play late. They got, what was it, a 47-yard run for Blake Corum that gave him some breathing room there. One of the biggest offensive play of the game for U of M. So Blake Corum, I said this a lot in the summer because it was true locally and with Michigan fans. I thought that Blake Corum was underrated. Nationally, he wasn't. He would show up. You would look at Big Ten writers, broadcasters. They would put up their different things in the summer about, who are the best backs in the country, who are the best backs in the Big Ten. And routinely, almost, you'd always have Blake Corum up there really high. And yet the discussion with Michigan fans was always like, Corum got hurt last year. And, he dropped that pass against Michigan State. It didn't make it sound like he was he's little. Those are some of the things. Not everybody's saying that, but I felt like he wasn't given enough credit for being the back that he was last year. Last year before he did get hurt in that Michigan State game, Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins were interchangeable. They were a real 1-2 punch for Michigan as Michigan established their identity early in the season and early in the non-conference slate, where they were coming out. They were going to give you a heavy dose of Haskins and a heavy dose of Corum. And those guys, as many touchdowns as Haskins was scoring, Corum was on his tail right there midway through. But all of he's underrated locally, that's all different now after he put out the performance that he did on Saturday to lead the way for Michigan winning the game on Saturday. That's how I saw Corum's performance. And Blake, it just came out today that he was awarded the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. That was a deserving honor for number 2, pair of touchdowns, a career high in carries with 30, and a career high in yards with 243. Yeah, I'd say you get a bust out for 243. That is a pretty big deal, and it was for Blake Corum. Now, looking at what Corum did, it's the 2 touchdowns. That first one was on a 4th and 1 with under a minute to play in the first half. That 33-yard touchdown that we ran at the beginning. This particular touchdown.
McCarthy gives it to Corum, hits the edge. Corum down the sideline. Blake Corum does it again. 27 yards. The little big man.
Oh, well, 47 yards. So that was the second one. I mixed up my runs. The first one was a 33-yard run on a 4th and 1 in the first half. That second one was on a 3rd and 4, and it made the score 34-19 when it was 27-19. So it gave Michigan the breathing room. So fabulous day for Corum, and Michigan needed it. Now, overall, my thoughts on the game is that it was not pretty. It was not a dominating performance that you might have expected from a team that is a top 5 team, number 4 team in the country. So you start there. It wasn't a dominating top 4 performance where Michigan looked like the 4th best team in the country. I think that's fair. Now, it doesn't mean that Michigan's terrible, that J.J. McCarthy, is not the QB, that this team ultimately can't get to all their goals. However, it is something like when you watch a team, every time you're out there and you watch them, you're gauging them and you're saying, well, are they this good? Do you really, do you feel confident? And you understand what a conference win and an opening win can do for you. It's not always going to be take a sledgehammer out there and just smash the opponent. That's what you would like to happen. You'd like to go out there and everybody hit on everything. Everybody looked great. And you're feeling like, man, this team is something special. They didn't look like that on Saturday. That doesn't mean they can't be. And I know that you're going to have a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions. And if you're of the opinion that everything is fine and, Michigan's great, they're still going to win anything, I think you can have that opinion. You can also, if you felt like, that one shook your legs a little bit and that, Michigan, that you're a little bit worried that they might not be able to do all the things that we talked about in the offseason, you can see that too. I mean, both sides have an argument there. So, it's a good thing to have more games because, in the next couple of days, you'll have people like, oh my God, what about this and that? And then you can say, well, hang on. And I think the hang on part, if you go back to last year and remember how Michigan played in its Big Ten opener, that one was at home too. It was against Rutgers, and Michigan didn't score any points in the second half, and they had 4 3-and-outs. And I can remember in the ended up being a 2013 final where it was 20-3 at the half, but Michigan had those 4 3-and-outs, and the first 3-and-out that they had gone into Rutgers territory and they ran the ball on a 3rd and 13. And, I'm sitting there thinking, this is a terrible play call. That was running the ball on a 3rd and 13. And then 3 more times they had a 3-and-out against Rutgers, and they had to hang on. The Scarlet Knights, we're out there thinking about getting a field goal to get closer, score a touchdown to tie that game late. It was kind of an ugly game last year. And that's the reminder. I think that it's a good reminder for this year, because that game last year, Michigan didn't look like any Big Ten contender. They didn't look like one of the better teams in the country. If you'd have talked about Michigan going to the college football playoff last year after beating Rutgers, people would have rightfully laughed at you. So it's one thing to remember. Now, you'd like the team to come out and be very impressive and look like the number 4 team in the country. And that didn't happen. And if you can be honest about it, they played dicey. It was a dicey at times on both sides of the ball. And in particular with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy in that game on Saturday was shaky. Now, it's just like the team overall Like, it doesn't mean that J.J. McCarthy can't use that game and get better next week. It doesn't mean that he can't go through that experience and play much better. It doesn't mean that Michigan can't run the table and go back to the college football playoff with J.J. McCarthy under center. But if J.J. McCarthy plays like he did on Saturday for the rest of the year, Michigan's going to lose a couple games. So you don't have to. You can go ahead and, defend J.J. McCarthy all you want. You can knock him any way you want. And both things, you can make arguments with both of those. I'll just tell you, for me, he was shaky on Saturday. He looked like the game, I think, was going a little bit too fast for him. I think he lacked awareness. Lacked awareness in the pocket. He lacked awareness when to run. He was shaky on his throws deep, and that's not very good. If I was grading it out, just his performance overall and give him a letter grade, I would have said he gets a C minus. Now, he did play better in the second half. The drive that he threw that first touchdown pass on the first play of the game for Michigan after the guy had the ball, pop off his head, and that was a great gift for U of M. They got at the 10-yard line, boom, McCarthy right into the end zone. It's like, hey, this is going to be easy. This is great. He didn't throw another touchdown until the start of the fourth quarter. It was a 10-play, 85-yard drive, and he was really good in that drive. If you go back and look, he was rolling out. He looked like some of the McCarthy in the first 3 games, the one that looked super confident, threw the ball with authority and on the numbers. He really ran the offense how you would hope and how you'd want if you were a Michigan fan. So you can say, hey, that was a really good sign. It was a really good sign. I also think that, he I don't know do you get lucky if a guy almost picks you off and his foot ends up, being on the chalk by like an inch or two? It was a bad throw. I'm talking about in the end zone where, Michigan ultimately kicked a field goal to give themselves a little bit of a breather in the second half. Because, if you say, well, he was great in the second half, well, he played better in the second half, and the game looked like it slowed down to him in the second half. Remember, he almost threw it was a bad throw across the field. The guy cut under it. You don't want to make that throw. And he was fortunate, to say that he was fortunate. So he did not play great in the second half, but he played much better. And we'll get to some of those points as we move through here as well. So the first thing, though, is, Blake Corum really rescued Michigan as they survived and won that game. And let's get into some of the things that I liked in this game. You get a win, and that's going to be the big thing that matters, because if you want to, and I haven't looked at any of the feedback yet, but if you want to say, well, look at this team, look at Oklahoma. Kansas State went in there and smacked them around and they lost. Well, good point. Look at Michigan State. They got shut out. Oh, I guess they scored late. They scored a late touchdown and avoided the shutout. Yeah, I mean, like, things could be a lot worse. I mean, Michigan could have lost the game, and you're totally right about that. You'd be, you'd be reeling right now if Michigan had lost the game. They didn't, so they ended up getting the win. After the game, I was talking with Jim Scarcelli, and Scarcelli is a longtime coach. And there's a lot of coaches and there are a lot of people that think like Scarcelli does and did, that was the best kind of medicine or the best kind of game that Michigan could have. A close game, a tight game, a game where they ultimately win, but there's a bunch of things that they went through that they can use in practice this week and that will benefit them moving forward. Yeah, I get that, from a coaching standpoint. Like I said, every time they hit the field, you'd like to see them come out and just smash the opponent, dominate the opponent. That gives you supreme confidence, and you think like, wow, this team is magical. This team is something special. We didn't see that on Saturday. But from the part about them getting a win and, that and looking at other teams and knowing the situation in other years and going back to just last year, you understand that, you get that win and you can use it. I like that early gift of a turnover that they got that enabled them to jump on the board. And when we're talking about the 2 touchdown runs for Corum were 2 of the biggest offensive plays. I'll say the 2 biggest offensive plays. The 2 biggest defensive plays, I don't think you could argue it. They were the interceptions that Michigan had in each half. DJ Turner diving out there, making a spectacular grab for the pick. And then in the second half, RJ Moten stepping in front of a Talia Tungavailoa pass and batting it around before securing it before he went to the ground and getting the interceptions. Those were huge for Michigan. And Mike Sandra, as I watched that game more than one time, you just watch him and you say, man, this guy's a good defensive player. You like him in coverage. You like him around the line of scrimmage. You like him blitzing. You like him back in the middle of the field. You just like him all over the field. You like Agent Zero back there for U of M. He's a good player. Now, those are the things that I liked when it came down to Michigan. Here's a couple of things that I did not like. I mentioned the 3 and outs last year, the 4 3 and outs against Rutgers last year. I did not like when Michigan came out in the second half and they gave the ball up the middle on a 3rd and 4 to their 4th string running back, Gash. I didn't like that play call. And when it comes to play calls, I don't like that Michigan continues to play this mystery game with its offensive coordinators. I don't know why Jim Harbaugh won't tell anybody who's ultimately making the calls. And if it really is a shared responsibility where both Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss are calling plays, that is a recipe for disaster. And if Harbaugh wanted to do that because he didn't want to lose more, let's say, and that's something to keep him around, that's not a good reason to do it. You don't want 2 cooks in the kitchen when it comes down to making play calls. There were a lot of people when I was watching this game online, and I was thinking of the game when I was watching the game on TV Saturday, and I was also looking online. And then Joel Klatt kept repeatedly saying that this offense doesn't have any rhythm. This offense is off. He didn't like that play call, and people were echoing that online. They didn't like the one time it was a rollout. I think it was Ronnie Bell who was going to throw the ball down there. Who's making those calls? If I got 5 plays that I want to really run, and you have 5 plays you want to really run, and they don't match up, when are you getting to make the call? It's just not a good idea for Jim Harbaugh. He should end that. I get that he likes to be the mystery man, and I like Jim Harbaugh. Let me say, because I'm criticizing him, but I think he's one of the best I think he's one of the best football coaches ever. I think he's one of the best football coaches in college right now. I really like how he runs the game. I like how he runs a lot of things. And again, I think he's one of the best football coaches ever. I think this situation is one that he should scrap. I thought that he was doing it in the offseason. Is it going to be a little bit cute because then he could say, we're doing things differently here at Michigan? Is it keeping both play callers on their toes? Is it keeping, both Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss engaged? All of those things. But I try to search for why that would be a positive thing for Michigan, and I can't really come up with anything. I think mostly it's bad. Now, maybe if Matt Weiss, slipped on a banana peel heading into the stadium and had a concussion and he was out, well, it'd be nice. Well, because Sharon Moore had called a few plays. One of the guys misses. I mean, how often is that going to happen? And that's a stretch anyway. So I think they should scrap that. When everything was going great, and Michigan was really impressive, and they were, squashing everybody, and everything looked great, there wasn't a whole lot of things to say. I don't like this and I don't like that, even though we still did it. But Saturday, when your offense doesn't have any rhythm and the play calling is questionable, you're going to say, well, who's calling the plays? And we don't know. So he should get rid of that. You may want to ask, and I think it's a good question, where A.J. Henning was in the game. Maybe he's hurt. Well, see, Jim Harbaugh wasn't. I just saw some snippets of what he was saying at his Monday news conference, and he wasn't getting in any injury talk. It didn't sound like Coach was, saying things like he doesn't have a crystal ball, stuff like that. So he wasn't saying anything about, who's available and who's not. Donovan Edwards, is he going to be good to go on Saturday? He wasn't forthcoming on any of that. But AJ Henning, as we know, and as we have watched him, whether it's punt returns, whether it's kick returns, whether it was like last week where they lined him up in the backfield and gave him a carry, that in almost every game you have seen, I think I'd have to go back and look. I think every game that I can at least recall, I'd have to go through all of this. I think he's at least got one carry on an end around for U of M. You know why? He's a really good player. You like to see the, number 3 with the ball in his hand. You don't say as much as possible, but he is somebody. If we're sitting down, if I'm part of the offensive staff and we're saying, hey, look, let's make sure we get some deep shots to Andrell Anthony. Let's get a bubble screen to Roman Wilson. Let's make sure we get the tight ends involved. I mean, all of these things that you're saying and you're talking about for a game plan, you're not going to go too far before somebody suggests, let's make sure we get AJ Henning involved. Let's throw him a quick screen. Let's get him on an end around. Let's line him up in the backfield. And there was none of that on Saturday, which makes me at least wonder about his status, if he's 100% or not. Now you can say, well, they're just saving him. Yeah, I'm not buying that they didn't run it because they, didn't want to put anything on tape. It's on tape. They've run him already this year. So it's there. It's on tape already. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Hopefully he's okay. And maybe he's just got a nail or, a nail hanger or something like that. It just needs a little clipping. He's going to be fine. So those are the things that I didn't like. So there's not a whole lot. But as I mentioned before I get to the feedback, I see a lot of it coming in here. And sorry, I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm saying here. I want to get to J.J. McCarthy because there's going to be a lot of people and everybody comments in on the quarterback. And I already saw it since Saturday. Like when somebody would make a comment and they'd say, leave J.J. McCarthy alone. It's like, you can have your opinion of J.J. McCarthy and we can discuss it. And if you're somebody that thinks everything was great and there was no issues on Saturday and, he's going to get your Heisman vote, that's fine. I didn't see it that way. I thought he had a shaky performance, a C- performance. And it doesn't mean that he can't rebound, but there were a lot of things where McCarthy looked a little shaky. He had a C- game. He did not have awareness that you need as a quarterback in the pocket on when to run, on when to move around in the pocket. It is one of the most important things that you can have as a quarterback, and he did not have it in the first half on Saturday. There's not really an argument, with that. Let's, I've got the screen up, and it just so happens that it's one of these plays that McCarthy doesn't show or shows a lack of awareness, and maybe it's already happened and I'll have to rewind it once, but let's go through it. This is the one, he ran one time. It was a 3rd and 7 and he ran around. This is, I'm going to go back a little bit because this is Sharon Moore over there talking to him and say, oh boy, yeah, that's not what you want. He ran in a 3rd and 7 and he was back there, which was fine that he ran. But the problem is that it was a 3rd and 7. When he got to the first down, he should have slid down. If he wanted to dive down, that was fine. But you know what he did? He did not slide down. He turned his back and ended up taking a real wallop. And that, out of the likes and dislikes from the game, I don't mind. Like, I don't think that you want to call a bunch of J.J. McCarthy running plays, but part of what gives J.J. McCarthy this upside and makes him potentially one of the better quarterbacks, not just in the Big Ten of the country, is that he's dual threat. that he has an amazing arm and that, he's really got some wheels and that he can run. So you can't, if you're taking that away from him, what that could do for his confidence and, all of that. But also, he needs to know when he gets a first down that, he can't be around there running or he's going to take unnecessary punishment. He's going to take punishment because he has to stand back there in the pocket and it's football and he's a quarterback. And once in a while, he's going to run it and he's going to take some shots. But when it's 3rd and 7 and you pick up the first down, you don't need to fight for 2 more yards and get a 2x4 in the back like he got. Now, he knows this and he's been told a million times. And so the awareness there, and, he'll learn from it. They'll show him on tape and they'll tell him again. But this is the same drive that I'm going to show you here. And he does the same thing. And on this one, you can run around and be Patrick Mahomes all you want. After 3 seconds in the pocket, you can't really rely on your offensive lineman anymore to block for you. And if you start doing figure eights in the backfield, and now you're getting to a 5-6 second count, you can't rely on anything out there. Because you know what can happen? Wow, the blind side is going to get you. Somebody's going to get you from the back. You can't know where everything is at out there. And that's what happens on this play for McCarthy after it already had happened to him during the game or during this series. Now you're sitting here. This is pretty innocent. Michigan's, trailing in this game with under 4.5 to play. But this is not what you want. If you start counting the seconds down, 1, 2, 3. You got to get rid of it right there. He needed to get rid of it. 4, 5. Here's a figure eight. Could have been down there. Now he takes an unnecessary shot, and he fumbled the ball. And he fumbled it earlier. You want Ant Booker, 88, landing on you? Look at this. You just can't do this. That's a turnover. And that's where, you say he had a shaky game. That's one of the plays you look at. That was very shaky. He fumbled another time where he didn't have the awareness. You can't have, if you're in the pocket, the ball hanging down by your side and not thinking that somebody's going to knock it away from you, which happened in this game as well. I don't know if it was a first real game jitters as a starter. I don't know if they took away his legs. Now is Sharon Moore the offensive coordinator because he's the one that's giving him the love here and he's talking with him? What's Sharon Moore's message? Where's Matt Weiss? He's up in the booth. Now, is he going to talk with him here? There's the captain, Mike Seenra, still saying, hey, you're okay. But a lot of things on this play, and I know JJ after the game didn't say, he wasn't like he was out there saying that he, played his best game or anything, but could you say that he's fortunate that, he didn't get hurt on that play? I think you can. So again, some things when it comes down to McCarthy that, he is going to have to work on. So, Harbaugh told Jenny Taft at the half what he was looking for from the team. He said, good fundamental football. And she followed up. What about Jay McCarthy? He said, we're looking for good fundamental football. I bet when the media asked him today about J.J. McCarthy, he echoed that and said he's looking for good fundamental football because what we saw on the fumbles that he had and running around, that was not good fundamental football. I don't know why he's overshooting guys on the long ball. The game seemed a little fast for him, but so he was a little shaky, on the scramble, on the first one, on the second one. Now, having said all of that, he wasn't completely like, wow, man, this is the worst quarterback ever. He had a 10-play, 85-yard drive with a 20-yard touchdown pass to Roman Wilson, the second touchdown pass. Remember, he threw the first offensive series, that 10-yard gift. He scored and threw it to Schoonmaker. He didn't throw another one until early in the fourth quarter when they went on that 85-yard drive. Everything in that particular drive, you could say he settled down, he looked good, he really had it going. And it was a real positive. And I know that they'll look at that and what they talked about him at the half, and he settled down. And in the fourth quarter, he threw a 3rd and 6 to Ronnie Bell down the sideline. That was as good of a pass. And I mentioned Patrick Mahomes, any of them. Bell right down the sideline. He threw, it was an NFL pass, and it was a great pass. And if you're giving it, on a scale to 10, 10 being great, you give it to a 9.5. Right on him. You loved it. So that was really good. Unfortunately, on that same series is when he threw the ball into the end zone and the DB undercut it and almost picked it off, which would have been, it was a bad throw, and it was fortunate that it did not get intercepted. So if he didn't have that throw, and you're U of M, you come away and you're looking at all those throws. I didn't evaluate every single throw, but on the 10-play one I did, he was really good on that one. And then the Bell play was the one where he threw the interception. He may not have had any bad throws, and he may have been very comfortable. He was more comfortable, and he seemed like he had more awareness, and it looked like the old J.J. McCarthy. The 20-yard throw to Roman Wilson was really good. And so maybe we already see him take a step forward from the shaky first half that he had against Maryland, and he'll use it as a learning experience in all of those kind of things. Okay, now as far as the people, let's go and read some messages here to see what the folks have to say. And live viewers' comments show up. Here we go. We start out. The first one is from the captain. The captain says, Jaimon Green, DJ Turner, Mikey Sanderstill, Will Johnson handled business in the back end as well as the D-line did in the front last year. Totally okay with more blitzing now. Let's hit them. Did they handle their business and will handle business? You just said handle. I don't know. The defense, I thought that Maryland would score some points. Maryland's a pretty good passing team. They got a good offense. Even the backup quarterback looked good. They came in. They got a good running back in Hemby. They got some good wide receivers. And so they were going to put up some points. Could Michigan do better in terms of pressure? Yeah. Did those guys do okay? Yeah, I think that those guys did do okay. I can't exactly, see what you were getting to totally there, Captain. You were just pointing it out. Captain was saying it was all scheme. Get JJ some more zone experience and get to more man pressure, and we're fine. Yeah, like I was saying, I don't think that was the case when it came down to it. It was more of him feeling. Now you could say that could have confused him whether it was zone or man, and that's why he stood in the pocket a little bit more. Okay, I could buy that. James is saying JJ needs to know when to throw the ball away, and that the defense weren't supposed to be interceptions. We got lucky that Maryland didn't do anything about it. Yeah, I think fortunate, but yeah, fortunate, lucky. What are we going to do? Parse words? I think if I was a Maryland fan, and if I was in the Maryland media, because I know how, if I was a fan, what I would want asked, the first thing I would have asked Mike Loxley is why they didn't call timeout after each one of those interceptions. Now, I think they're fortunate. Now, you can say, I saw it. Those were both interceptions. That's fine. You can have that opinion. I don't have any problem with anybody having that opinion, and I'm not here to change your opinion on either of the interceptions. What I would say is that both Joel Klatt and Mike Pereira on the DJ Turner interception both said that they thought that it was a trap and that it would get overturned. That doesn't mean both of those guys and Gus Johnson said the same thing about the fumble strip last year up at Spartan Stadium. And, that one ended up getting overturned. So, it can happen. But the point is those guys thought it was hit the ground. And at the very least, and if you're so adamant that I don't want to hear anybody saying anything about that, I would just say, if you call a timeout, there was under 8-9 minutes to go in the first half. Maryland had all 3 timeouts. You're forcing them to look at it. And you at least, I would say, have a 50-50 shot at getting that overturned if you're Maryland. So that was the biggest gaffe of the game by Loxley, not calling a timeout there. It was also a gaffe not to call a timeout on the R.J. Moulton interception. Now, again, you could say that one looked fine to me. I'm all right with you thinking that it looked fine. And was there irrefutable video evidence? Not on my television copy. I've seen people slow it down, and you can see the ball on the ground and neither of his hand on the ball. If it was just the views on the TV, the one as they're going to break, it's kind of like the bottom quarter of the football and the ground. They're not in the television shot when they go to breaks, and that's the key piece of evidence you need if you're in the replay booth. But again, it would have been totally worth doing because they might have had another video that they could have pieced something together and they could have seen it. I don't know. If they did have another video and it looked pretty close to the one they had, but you shouldn't turn things over because it looked pretty close or that you can make a case. It's supposed to be irrefutable video evidence. But we've all watched enough games where they get turned over all the time. So 2 gigantic mistakes, both by Maryland, and 2 of the biggest plays of the game. So Michigan, you want to say they were lucky? All right, they're certainly fortunate. Now, we don't know if they would have been fortunate on the replays and turnovers and everything else. But, yeah, it's a factor in the game. I didn't see as many people talking about those as I thought. Maybe because that's what happens with fans. Like if you're a Michigan fan, and you catch a break, okay, it's the way it's supposed to be. Let's move on. Where if it goes against you, that's when you harp on it. And if it's a loss, that's what ended up costing you, and you can go to it. Maybe that's the human nature. And I think that's maybe what it was. I think that's what it is. Actually, now that I've talked it through, Adrian says at the end of the day, this is exactly what our team needed. Help improve the team without a loss. And I get that, Adrian. I think that there's a lot of people that I'm reading that, and wherever they're listening to this, if they're listening or watching it live, they're shaking their head. Exactly, Adrian. You got a lot of things. You get a wake-up call. You had a lot of things where, it got a little close into some situations and that you survived them. It's going to be a great learning experience and you move forward and all that. And I think that's how the team will look at it. And I think there's a lot of fans that are sharing exactly what you are saying. And you're talking about injuries. Sure. Getting healthy is for sure something that they're going to want to do to get the help when you think about some of those guys that are banged up. Brian says he told us that it was a trap game. All right, Brian, I'll give you your credit. I thought Michigan was going to cover the 17 points, and I thought that they would score in the 50s. I did think that Maryland was going to score 27. I don't know how much credit. If they didn't cover, but I got one of the sides right in the score, I'm not. Brian, I'll give you the credit. All right. James says Michigan special teams and Blake Corum equal a L to Maryland, shaking my head. Special teams minus Blake Corum equal a loss to Maryland, shaking my head. Yeah, well, I mean, you can play that game a lot. Like special teams, them getting the gift right off the bat. That's what you're talking about. And then, Corum running for 243, like, sure. That part of the game where you say, well, if I didn't have Blake Corum, well, yeah. You take the number one player off a lot of teams, and they could be in jeopardy of losing a conference game. So I hear what you're saying. Special teams made some big plays, and there were some missed tackles. I hear people, talking about some missed tackles or talking about missed tackles. So Brian saying hitting the like button. I'm in favor of that, Brian. Yeah, let's go, man. Let's do it. Let's see. Leo making the point that the top 10, excluding OSU, struggled. I don't have the top 10 sitting in front of me, Leo, but Clemson certainly struggled. Georgia, Kent State kept that one closer. So it's not a bad point. And you're not going to have every game, even if you would like them to be totally impressive. But is there anything to be down? I think that's the thing. Is there anything to be down about after Michigan's performance on Saturday? Or just one of those things? It's college football and they survived. I mean, that's the critical question for everyone. I'm a little apprehensive about McCarthy right now. From everything that I've seen up to this point, I mean, this guy, you're talking about an ascending player, a special player. Like, he had these markings, like you're thinking maybe he's all of those things and some. I mean, now that's an incredible pedestal that I had him up there on. Like, man, this guy, could be everything. And that took a little bit of a hit to me on Saturday. And they don't need him to be the best quarterback in the country, but they'll need him to be and learn and connect on some deep passes and find some pocket awareness, and all those things are doable. But and it gets back to what a bunch of people have said. In the end, it could end up being good news if he uses it and the team does. I'm just being honest about overall where I was sitting here. Let's see. The captain says the first one was a pick. Yeah, I'm fine. You know what I found about the replay and everything else? There was only just a couple of years ago, I would sit there and argue with people like, no way. But what we're doing is, and if you're a big time college football fan, do you want to even be objective about what you're watching? I don't know. I don't know if the captain wants to be objective. You could watch. I watch football games with my friends, and nobody, when they watch it, they're all immediately. It's complete bias wherever they're at. I'll watch it if you're a Michigan fan, automatically. It's a pick, and then you have people that are always looking to the other side. So you understand that part, that most people are biased to begin with. They're not trying to be objective. And like I said, I don't know, exactly where the captain is coming from. I also know that none of us, you can see it with the replay when you say, well, it's supposed to be irrefutable video evidence. If we had 100 people sitting in a room, all of us would be like, oh yeah, that was an interception. Well, it didn't have that standard, but what we know is that's not the standard when it comes to replay. A lot of times, the different guys, if they can find anything, even a hint that it could hit the ground or something, you got some guys that are looking to overturn. Some officials are looking to overturn a play. And then you get to the part where, I could throw a picture of a blue dress up on the screen right now, and I could ask the captain, and he would say, that's a gold dress. And I'd say, no, it's a blue dress. Well, apparently we see different things. There was that blue and gold dress that was put out there. And it's the same thing like with the audio. I forget what the word was. Laurel and not Hardy, Laurel and whatever. Laurel and something. Laurel and Taggart. You'd hear it and say, oh, that definitely sounds like Laurel. So, you never know who you're dealing with when you're dealing with the video replay folks. And, some of them, what their idea of irrefutable video evidence is not your idea. So I don't know. I'll say it again, Captain. You can say that. And what I'm telling you is if they called a timeout, there was a 50% chance that they would have overturned it. But I'll say this to you, Captain. I'm glad they didn't. Jeremy says it was a no win in the Maryland game. If we would have crushed them, it would be another week of how we haven't beat anyone up 15 with 2 minutes left and got a garbage TD. Well, there's going to be a little bit of that. You're right. There's going to be a little bit of that Saturday because Iowa really doesn't have a very good offense. And so if Michigan hangs on, let's just say right now the Michigan wins 20-10. Michigan hasn't played anybody. Iowa's got a high school offense. That's going to happen. So you're right about that. That's it. All right. Let's see what other people have to say. Todd is saying the ugly wins still count. Yeah, it's good. Like just because you don't look good or you have some issues and you still won, it's okay. And I know some people, and it really is all is it all that matters this past Saturday is that they won. It's a big part of it. You get the win. How they looked and doing it is going to be, part of the discussion. So there you go. And Leo's right. Michigan didn't exactly dominate all of its opponents last year. Let's get real. That's true. But, last year, nobody thought that Michigan was winning anything. There were a few people the week of the Ohio State game that picked Michigan. They usually pick Michigan anyways, but they picked them. And people really didn't see last year coming. They lost to Michigan State. They had to make the big plays. When they won at Penn State, they put themselves in position. And, there was a part of that. It's like, hey, it's the only thing you can ask for. If you put yourself in position and you're at home to, you beat your big rival there. But this year, the expectations, that's the difference. What did everybody pick here? I was asking people. There were people saying 12-0, college football playoff, Big Ten champs. I myself, after the season, said I think a very reasonable selection is 10-2, which was more than the Vegas number, which was 9.5. I changed it because of this week in the summer when I looked at Iowa and I said Michigan should be able to go to Iowa and win that game. They'll be a double-digit favorite, and they are a double-digit favorite. Even though it opened at 7.5, it's up to 10.5, or whatever that's worth. But that's the difference. This year you have expectations and you have a quarterback that you think could potentially be something special. Now, did I have to laugh a little bit when I saw one of my colleagues last week putting something up on Twitter? And I don't think they didn't. It was Pro Football Focus. I don't know who the person was at Pro Football Focus or anything, but the gist of the picture that they put up is that McCarthy was a first-round draft pick. And as much as I like J.J. McCarthy, and I think he's got potential for all of that, I've been talking about that today. After 2 non-conference games against UConn and Hawaii, I was tapping the brakes a little bit on the, let's talk about him being a top 10 picker. So come on, but hey, somebody's opinion. They watch him. They think he's going to be a first-round pick. I can remember going to the second night game at Michigan, Notre Dame. It was Devin Gardner started the game. Picture perfect night. Devin Gardner played great. Old number 98 against the Fighting Irish. And then it was just that Monday, it came out that they were putting together mock drafts for the next year. They had Devin Gardner as a first-round pick based on one game. And Devin Gardner, that was more information that people have had, at least a better opponent than anything that, that JJ put together. Todd says that Harbaugh is the offensive coordinator. Well, Todd, no, he's not. I mean, it's a collaborative play caller deal during the week when they're talking about, let's put this play in. These are the ones that we're going to script. But ultimately, Todd, somebody is calling in the play to J.J. McCarthy, and it's not Jim Harbaugh. It's one of the offensive coordinators. Now, Harbaugh has that feed in his in going through, and can Harbaugh say, let's run a reverse here? He could. I don't know when he jumps in. I think he jumps in like when it's a 4th down situation towards midfield. He might be like, let's go for it. I think he might do the same thing if they get down there at the goal line and it becomes a 4th and 3, and you got Sharon Moore or Matt Weiss, whichever guy is, flipping a coin to decide who's going to make the call there. I hope they have a little bit, better process worked out than that. But the Harbaugh, that's when he gets in and says, no, let's kick this. That's what the head coach does. So that is incorrect. He is not the offensive coordinator. So that's the part where you get where you don't understand what is going on. Let's see. I'm going to just work through some of the feedback here. Dune. It's concerning that our offense struggled at times against a defense that isn't exactly spectacular. Iowa might be completely inept at all, but their D will make you pay if you make mistakes. True. Mozzie turned the game around, defensive run game with a couple plays. Salute to him. Yeah, Mozzie Smith was great. I'm with you on that. He made a couple big stops. Here's Jared. Maybe he's talking to me. Let's see. No offense, but you're overreacting. That was JJ's first real start. To put things in perspective, he completed 69% of his passes, over 200 yards, two TDs. If that's his worst, we're golden. Yeah, I think you're directing that at me. I don't care. I mean, it's fair if you want to say I'm overreacting. That's your opinion. I'm just reacting. And I'm not here to beat on him. But 2 fumbles, couldn't connect on a downfield pass, running around with very little pocket awareness. If you think that's overreacting, then that's all right. I'm trying to give people the sense of what I saw. If I was sitting back and I had people killing him and saying, well, let's put in Davis Warren, or this guy isn't all it's cracked up to be, well, I would say, I think you're going overboard a little bit, but we're all just going to have our opinions. And look, Jared, if you want just the maize and blue opinion, like everything's great, there are plenty of people out there probably running shows just like this that will sit there and they will just smooth it all on out for you and tell you how everything is going great for the maize and blue, and people are coming after Michigan unnecessarily, and there's a bunch of hypocrites. You can find all those people. There's some on the radio, and there's a bunch of people that cover the team that are just like that. I'm going to watch the game, and I'm going to give people my opinion on what I saw. And I thought it was a shaky performance. C-. That's it. A lot of room for improvement. But I'm not taking this play out and saying, well, the first play, he was set up shop at the 10-yard line. You take that one away. I'm not taking anything away. I'm looking at all the plays. The thing for me, besides any of the stats or anything else, is that the game looked fast for him. And if it didn't look fast to you, then we were watching 2 different games. I watched a guy that was running around in the pocket, taking unnecessary shots where he had no idea. Like, there was a couple times he stood in there. There was one that he threw across his body to Cornelius Johnson. It wasn't a bad pass. It was incomplete. But you know what? He saw the defender coming and he threw it, and he took a pretty big shot. I'm not talking about that. That is part of playing the game. I'm talking about moving around in the pocket and somebody hitting you and you have no idea that they're there. That happened at least 3 times to him. If you think that's okay and you think that's part of the game and you think, that, your friend was telling you that's, McCarthy and he put down $100 on him to win the Heisman, so you want to feel like that's fine. He had a lack of awareness in the pocket of the pass rush. That's shaky. I watched Shea Patterson from the pocket. He couldn't throw a deep ball. He threw a lot of deep balls like McCarthy threw on Saturday. He couldn't throw a deep ball to save his life. And the thing is that Patterson, if you watched his tape when he was at Ole Miss, it jumped out at you. This guy could run all over the field making plays. Woo, he's awesome. Spin around. He looked like an next Johnny Manziel. Fabulous. Couldn't wait for him to come in. But the crazy part is you'd watch him stand in the pocket with no pass rush and throw the ball down the field, and it wouldn't even be in the same area code as the wide receiver. And I'm thinking, whoa, what's that? And that continued at Michigan. By the time it was his last game against Alabama, you knew receivers would run out there and, it would be 10 yards beyond him. He just couldn't do it. Now, I don't know. J.J. McCarthy has thrown some deep passes with his feet on the ground, and so I'm not saying that's the same thing. It was on Saturday. I think it's because the game was going too fast for him. So, Jared, if you think that routinely missing a deep ball by, 5-10 yards, and I know Harbaugh said, well, he's got his arm strength back now, or whatever that was. I don't know. Maybe he'll talk about that a little bit more. McCarthy was so keyed up and throwing the ball so much that they got to dial him down a little bit so he can hit his receivers. I don't know what that was. Sometimes you throw a ball deep and you'll, overshoot your guy. You do that once, you get it. You do it twice, you're like, okay, what's going on here? Can you get it in the same? You do it 3-4 times? And you think I'm overreacting? You think standing back there and all of a sudden getting smashed because you don't see because you're holding the ball like 4 seconds longer than you're supposed to? And you think that's overreacting? Jared, I think you're underreacting. But that's okay. I'm all right with, you underreacting to it. I think there's a lot of people that'd be just like you. Speaking of Jared, he's talking about McNamara. Yeah, look, bringing in McNamara wasn't dressed on Saturday. He's got nothing to do. I don't know what the point is there. People are going to be critical of the quarterback position. People are going to have opinions of the quarterback position. We just had a quarterback competition, so people are going to talk about McNamara. But McNamara, there's nothing about McNamara in the game, unless you want to make the point that Michigan told, which is something I've considered, that they told McCarthy not to run the ball because they're worried about him getting hurt because they don't have Cade anymore. I would be disappointed if that's what they told him, because it looked like somebody told him not to run the ball, and then you're taking away half of the kid's game, which then makes him stress, and then he's going to move around the pocket, and then he's going to overthrow. Maybe somebody did tell him something like that. But I don't know what other kind of points you're going to make about McNamara, except that people's opinions are all over the place when you start talking about a QB at a place like Michigan. So that's it. And I am now talking about doom or gloom. That's the thing. Like, let's not just all say, like, if you want somebody coming on here and talking about how great everything is because they won the game and everything's going perfect, or, you feel like if somebody says something, like, boy, they look like the game was a little fast. You're a hater. No, let's have some nuance a little bit. And I get it, Jared. I get it, Leo. You guys listen to these opinionists and people that are coming up with hot takes all the time and trying to set you up. I'm just giving you the complete honest opinion of what I saw there. No, it's not all doom and gloom. I think J.J. McCarthy with Michigan under center can give them a really good chance to run the table and be in Indianapolis and go to the college football playoff. Did I find it a little concerning with his shaky play at times on Saturday? I did. And that's it. That's all. That's where it's at. I'm not saying anything else. And I've told you the reasons about that. And like I say, if you're perfectly fine with everything else, it's not all doom and gloom. Did you miss the part where I talked about the 10-play, 85-yard drive where everything in there, he looked like he had command and the game had slowed down for him, where he threw the 20-yard pass to Roman Wilson for the touchdown, which is a very encouraging sign? There was nothing doom and gloom about that. It was the exact opposite of doom and gloom. I think you can have some texture and to your opinion, and it doesn't have to be all like I'm for Michigan and everything they do, and everything's great to make me feel great about everything. I get that. And then the other side where people are always, chopping at them, and you hear a lot of that, and you just you hate hearing bad things about Michigan. I get that too. But that's going to be my style. It might not be for you, Jared or Leo. I just tell you. But like I said, there's a lot of people that'll just sit back and put that. They'll get their shine box out. You want a shine box? You can find one. I don't know why I'm yelling. All right. Yeah, I love football. That's why I'm yelling. I'm sitting around. I like watching Michigan. I like talking about them. And you know who else likes talking about Michigan? All the staff at the Maize and Blue Review. This morning, you could have woke up and checked it out on the podcast, Rise to the Victors. That happens Monday morning. I'm not exactly sure if they put that out late Sunday or early Monday. I think it's early Monday. You get many of the staff members at the Maize and Blue Review, all they are talking about Maryland and looking ahead. You got this show that comes your way weekdays at 1:00. You will get some film review going as well today. A lot of stuff going on a Monday. You get some recruiting coverage, insider info later in the week. Got the gambling odds. When it comes down to some criticism, I'll need to take some criticism on my selections. I have not been picking good on sharpening the edge. But it may be a situation where you want to tune in and pick everything the opposite of me. But like I said, with years of making selections, I have found it's kind of like my billiards game, my pool game, or my dart game, or my jump shot. I don't like to feel like I'm streaky. Like I would think that if you threw me the ball that I've got a really good chance of knocking down that jumper, but decades of information, and I'm a streaky shooter, and I'm a streaky picker when it comes down to it as well. Jeremy, I love you getting in with the opinions. Dave said I'm driving the conflict without nuance. Okay, Dave. Sorry about that. You've got this show, and then if you did not hear, you can find out what's going on with the Maize and Blue Review coming up next. Go to michigan.rivals.com. And right now, until basketball season, you can get full access to the Maize and Blue Review. Use promo code UMB2B. That's U of M B2B. Dave saying, you were saying that McCarthy was shaky. He wasn't. He wasn't Superman. Well, we'll just disagree, Dave, because your statement there and what you're saying, I disagree with. I was saying that he played shaky, and you're saying he didn't. And you're saying he just wasn't Superman. I disagree with that. So that's okay. Like, he wasn't Superman. If you thought he was good, that's great. I've got no problem with that. I don't have a problem with anybody out there that wants to say that, McCarthy was good on Saturday. That was their opinion. And they roll out his stats and, they think that's what their opinion is. I've tried to give you mine and back it up with what I saw. You don't have to agree with me. You may think that it's too negative for your liking, which I can understand. Because it's not the Michigan, it's not your normal Michigan maize and blue pom-pom stuff. So that's all right. I didn't feel like that was in order today. But we'll start. We're here now. I mean, this is the conference season. There's no more. This guy's great. Everything's going fantastic. Can't wait till the season starts. Oh, the non-conference sucks. Now you get a road game. This is the one. If we said it 100 times, we said it once, we said it 100 times in the offseason. The real season is going to begin October the 1st, and that's this Saturday. We'll be focusing on what Michigan's going to do, how they will perform, what everybody's saying about them, looking towards that game on Saturday. Thanks, everybody, for joining me here today. And until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, everybody.